everyone, my name is Nur Azmina. So today our group will be presenting an analysis of a short story titled The Nightingale and The Rose by Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde, born in 1854 and passed away in 90s, was a renowned Irish poet, playwright, and an influential figure in the aesthetic movement. This movement focused on promoting the idea of arts for art's sake, emphasizing beauty and artistic expression over moral or political messages. Wilde is widely recognized for his sharp wit and the underlying tragedy in many of his works. The Nightingale and the Rose was published in 1888 as a part of Happy Prince and Other Tales. This story explored a deep and powerful themes such as love and sacrifice. Through symbolic character and poetic language, Wilde critiques the nature of human emotions and the cause of selfless acts. Let's now dive deeper into the story's plot, characters, themes, and literary elements.
So hi everyone, my name is Rabia Tusna, and today I'm going to dive into Oscar Wilde's poignant and thought-provoking short story, which is The Nightingale and the Rose. This isn't just a simple fairy tale, but it is also a profound commentary on love, sacrifice, and the value we often hold in society. So my part is plot and the frightened triangle. So now let's begin by revisiting the story expositions. Here we introduce to our protagonist, which is a young student. As you can see, he is consumed by despair. He believes that he is in love with a girl who has promised to dance with him only if he brings her a red rose. She said that she would dance with me if I brought her red rose, set the stage for the entire narrative. He is so confused on his conditional affections that he is oblivious to the world around him. So the next exposition is where his cry, the young student's cry, is being overheard by the Nightingale. And the Nightingale, a creature of pure idealism and deep understanding of love, observed him. She pondered the mystery of love and, recognizing the student's distress, it moved by what she perceived as true suffering for love. She makes a pivotal decision. As the quote says, she sat silent in the oak tree and thought about the mystery of love. Suddenly, she spread her brown wings for flight and soared into the air. This marked the beginning of her selfless quest. And now, we move on to the rising action, where the Nightingale journey begins. She visits various rose trees and desperately seeking that exclusive red rose. She offers her most special gift in return, where she offered to sing her song. And she said that, "Give me a red rose," while she cried, "and I will sing you my sweetest song." This illustrates her belief in the power of her arts and depth of her desire to help. However, each tree she encounters offer an only white or yellow roses, insists that red rose grow somewhere else. For the another rising action is where finally the Nightingale finds a rose tree that can produce a red rose. But there's a terrible price where the tree explains that such a rose can only be created through immense sacrifice, and it must be built out of music by moonlight, and is stained with your own heart's blood. This revelation set up the story's central conflict and the ultimate price of truth, which is unconditional love. So, the next slide is climax. This brings us to the climax of the story, where a moment of profound sacrifice. Despite the chilling warning, "Death is a great price to pay for a red rose," cried the Nightingale. Her idealism and belief in love powers prevail. She pressed against the rose thorn and, choosing to give her life, she sings throughout the night, pouring her soul into the creation of the rose. So another climax we got here is where the Nightingale sings her final dying song, and her heart's blood stained the rose white, turning its petal of vibrant into the perfect red. This image captures the beauty and tragedy of her ultimate sacrifice, and the rose, now truly unique and perfect, is a testament to her profound love. We see the rose. The red rose heard it, and it trembled all over with ecstasy, and opened its petals to the cool morning air. Now let's move to the falling actions, where with the sun rising, the student waits find the magnificent red rose. It is unaware of the terrible cost. He is overjoyed, and he takes the rose, believing his superficial wish has been granted effortlessly. And he also rushed to the girl and proudly declaring, "You said that you would dance with me if I brought you a red rose. Here is the reddest rose in the world." And here is where the story takes its sharp turns into tragedy and irony. The girl, instead of being appreciative, she rejects the rose. Her reasoning is purely materialistic and superficial. She complains, "I am afraid it will not go with my dress, and besides, the Chamberlain's nephew has sent me some rich jewels, and everybody knows that jewels cost far more than flowers." The ultimate sacrifice of the Nightingale is utterly waste on someone who values diamonds over devotions. So now, let's look at the denouements, where the student, faced with this cold rejection, and quickly shift from despair to cynicism, and he labels the girl ungrateful. "I tell you what, you are very rude." His brief love for her dissolved not into deeper introspections, but into bitter dismissal. He failed completely to grasp the profound meaning behind the rose he held. And in the final moment of the story, the student completely abandons the idea of love. He dismisses it as impractical or foolish, and saying, "What a silly thing love is. I should go back to philosophy and study metaphysics." He returns to his book and choosing the cold, detached work of academia over the messy, emotional words of human connection. And the Nightingale, heroic act, her ultimate sacrifice, is completely forgotten and unappreciated, deemed worthless by the very person for whom it was made.
Hi and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Emis Rabentisa. So for my part, I will presenting about the major and minor conflict for this story. So the major conflict in the story is man versus society. Man versus society is shown through the student belief in pure, noble love. He's convinced that giving a red rose will win the girl's heart, but when she rejects it in favor of jewels, his idealism is crushed, which is revealing how society values wealth and status over genuine emotion. So, the next one is minor conflict. The minor conflict is Nightingale versus nature or self. It appears in the Nightingale painful choice to give up her life by praising her heart against her tone to create a red rose. Her act is selfless and sincere, but tragically, it goes unnoticed by the very people it was meant to touch. The next one is setting. There's three settings in this short story, which is place, time, and culture. So the first one is place. The place in this short story is a garden near a student lodgings and the professor house. The time, the author not mentioned about the time, is unspecific, but it feels like a fairy tale or timeless romantic era, possibly late 19th century. So the last one is cultural. The cultural appears to be Victorian, whereas romantic ideal clash with social realism and values like a logic reason, and material status often override emotional or artistic experience. This is evident in how the student turns back to philosophy and dismisses love as impractical. And I would like to add on the reason for the chosen setting, which is a place. Why I chose a garden near the student lodgings? It is because the garden is the central to the plot, is where the student laments the lack of a red rose and where the Nightingale sacrificed herself. Wilde used the garden as a symbolic space where nature, love, and sacrifice intersect. And the proximity to the student rooms and the professor house shows the contrast between intellectual knowledge, which is philosophy, and emotional understanding, which is love. And the next one, why I choose a timeless or fairy tale romantic era, it is because the author doesn't give a specific year, but the story reads like a fairy tale or parable, which is support the idea that the events and lessons are universal and timeless. The old-fashioned social custom, for example, bringing a rose to a dance, concern for dress and appearance, reflect a romantic or Victorian influence. And the last one, reason for the chosen setting, which is cultural, Victorian 19th century context. Oscar Wilde wrote this in 1888 during the Victorian era, which value reason, class, status, and often repressed emotion. The girl's materialism that I mentioned before, is choosing jewels over a rose, also critique the Victorian emphasis on wealth and social prestige over genuine emotion. So next, we are going to look at the important themes in Oscar Wilde's touching fairy tale The Nightingale and the Rose. Although the story seems simple, it explores deep ideas about human nature, love, and the sad truths of life. We will focus on three main themes in the story. The first theme is sacrifice for love. The nightingale is a bird who sees a student crying because he can find a red rose to give to the girl he likes. The nightingale believes the student is truly in love, so she decides to help. To do this, she sings all night while pressing her chest against a thorn. Her blood turns a white rose red and she dies. The wife writes, "The rose is finished now," said the tree, but the nightingale made no answer. She was lying dead in the long grass with a thorn in her heart. Even though the nightingale gives her life, the student never knows what she did. Her sacrifice is not appreciated. The next theme is materialism versus idealism. Materialism means caring about money and things, meanwhile, idealism means caring about feelings like love. The girl doesn't want the rose because she gets expensive jewels from someone else. She says, as it's absent from the short story, the Chamberlain's nephew has sent me some real jewels, and everybody knows that jewels cost far more than flowers. She only cares about money and gifts, not love. The student also gives up on love very fast. When the girl rejects him, he says, "What a silly thing love is. I shall go back to philosophy and study metaphysics." Both the girl and the student care more about things and logic than about true love. The third and most painful theme is the futility of unreciprocated love. When love is not written or appreciated, the nightingale gives her life for the student's love, but neither he nor the girl understands her sacrifice. The student even says about her song, "What a pity it is that they do not mean anything or do any practical good." In the end, after the girl refused the rose, the student throws it away. He threw the rose into the street, and a cartwheel went over it. This shows how love, even when it is true and beautiful, can be thrown away if others do not value it. To conclude, The Nightingale and the Rose teaches us that true love and sacrifice are not always noticed or rewarded. White uses this story to criticize a society that often cares more about money and appearance than real emotions. It reminds us how painful it can be when love is not written, and how beautiful yet tragic selfless love can be. That's all.
Hello, my name is Muhammad Fasha Adi bin Fauzi, and for my part, I'll be presenting about character and characteristic in The Nightingale and the Rose by Oscar Wilde. This story contains three major characters and a few minor characters that carry symbolic meaning. The first one we have the Nightingale. The Nightingale represents true love and sacrifice. Her first characteristic is selflessness when she sacrificed herself over a rose for the student. And her next trait is romantic. She truly believes in the power of love and pure love when she says, "Surely love is a wonderful thing. It is more precious than emeralds and dearer than fine opals." And this can be found on page 2. The next character is the student. The student seems emotional at first when he says, "She said that she would dance with me if I brought her red roses," cried the young student. "But in all my garden there is no red rose." He thinks his life is over because of it. And later, we found that he is not emotional, he's just a shallow. He doesn't understand what true love is. He wants the rose just to win the girl's heart, and when the girl rejects him, he gives up and say, "What a silly thing love is. It is not half as useful as logic," and can be found on page 6. And the last major characters we have the professor's daughter. She is truly materialistic when she says, "I'm afraid it will not go with my dress. Besides, the Chamberlain's nephew has sent me some real jewels." This can be said when she chose jewels over a meaningful rose, and can be found on page 6. And she also an arrogant when she says this to the student, "You are very ungrateful." She answered angrily, "After all, who are you? Only a student. I don't believe you have even got silver buckles to your shoes." And it can be found on page 6 at the end of the scene. And let's talk briefly about the minor characters. First, we have the daisy. The daisy is quiet and passive, and it also observes but does nothing, and it represents innocence. And the lizard is always mocking and sarcastic. He mocks the student and the nightingale, and it represents the society's skepticism. And the last one we have is the butterfly. The butterfly is unbothered by the nightingale sacrifice. She doesn't care at all, and it symbolizes the society's ignorance towards the towards love. And that's all from me. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
The Nightingale and the Rose is equally remarkable for Oscar Wilde's masterful use of tone and style. These literary elements are crucial in conveying to the story's emotional weight and its critical social commentary. We will explore two distinct tones and Wilde's characteristic use of imagery. Firstly, the story carries a distinct melancholic tone from its very beginning. There's an underlying sense of sadness and sorrow which deepens as the narrative progresses. This tone is particularly pronounced surrounding the Nightingale's tragic death. Wilde carefully builds this atmosphere, especially as the Nightingale sacrifices herself. The ultimate expression of the sorrow is captured in the line, "The Nightingale made no answer, for she was lying dead in the long grass with a thorn in her heart." This evokes a profound sense of loss and pity for the selfless creature, setting a somber mood that underscores the unappreciated nature of her sacrifice. Running parallel to the melancholic tone, the story also develops an increasingly ironic tone, particularly noticeable in its conclusion. The irony stems from the stark contrast between the character's expectation and the harsh reality, and the reader's understanding versus the character's ignorance. The most striking examples comes from the student after his rejection. "What a silly thing love is," said the student. "It is not half as useful as logic. I shall go back to philosophy and study metaphysics." This is deeply ironic. The student, for whom such an immense sacrifice was made, utterly dismissed the very concept of love, unaware of the profound act committed on his behalf. This serves to highlight the story's critique of societal values and the superficiality of human perception. Complementing these tones is Wilde's signature vivid imagery style. Wilde is renowned for his descriptive prose, and in this story, he truly paints beautiful and haunting images with his words. This is especially evident in the climatic scene of the Rose creation. He transformed the abstract concept of sacrifice into a tangible, visceral image. Crimson was the girdle of petals, and crimson as a ruby was the heart. This imagery not only makes the scene intensely visual, but also emphasizes the blood and life force that goes into creating the rose, transforming it from a simple flower into a powerful symbol of ultimate sacrifice and tragic beauty. This rich descriptive language draws the reader deeply into the emotional landscape of the story. Wilde's masterful blend of melancholic and ironic tones, coupled with this exquisite use of vivid imagery, elevates The Nightingale and the Rose beyond a simple fairy tale. These elements work in concert to deepen the story's emotional impact, reinforce its critical messages, and ensure its lasting resonance with readers.
My name is Muhammad Razi bin Taufik, ID number BGA 2407-10030, and I'm going to tell you guys the point of view to The Nightingale and the Rose. The narration type is third person omniscient. The narrator knows everything about all the characters, provide insight into thoughts, feelings, and motivations, allows readers to understand the emotional contrast and irony. The first one is students' inner thoughts. I have read all that the wise men have written, and all the secrets of philosophy are mine. Yet for one overread rose in my life made wretch. The explanation is, it shows the student's emotional state and overthinking. We hear his personal feelings. Nightingale thoughts. Here at last is a true lover, said the nightingale. What I sing of, he suffers, what is joy to me, to him is pain. The explanation is, narrator reveals the nightingale's deep belief in love, which contrasts with the student's view. The third one is oak tree's feelings. The oak tree understood and felt sad, for he was very fond of the little nightingale who had built her nest in his branches. And the explanation is, even the tree's emotions are shown, clear evidence of third-person omniscient narration. And that's all.
Moving on to literary devices. In this short story, The Nightingale and the Rose by Oscar Wilde, there are several different literary devices. Those are irony, imagery, personification, and symbolism. But for this short story, we only pick three, which are irony, symbolism, and personification. So the first one is irony. The type of irony in the short story is situational irony. Why? because the sacrifice is wasted or unappreciated. The nightingale makes the biggest sacrifice for love, but that sacrifice is totally wasted because no one appreciates it. The textual evidence are, the student gets the perfect red rose, but then the girl says, I am afraid it will not go with my dress. And besides, the chamberlain's nephew has sent me some real jewels, and everybody knows that jewels cost far more than flowers. She prefers cheap jewels over the rose made with a life. Then the student throws the rose away. It is ironic because the huge effort was for nothing. The next one is the symbolism. In the short story, there are two symbolisms, which are the red rose and the nightingale. So for the first one, the red rose. The red rose symbolizes the ultimate, pure, and selfless love. It is about giving everything for someone else. The nightingale dies to make the rose red. You must sing to me with your breast against my thorn. This shows she gives her life, her blood, for the rose, proving it stands for the highest kind of love. This is a conventional symbolism because the red rose can also be found out of this short story as a symbol of love. The nightingale, which is a bird that is known for its a beautiful song. The textual evidence are, here at last is a true lover, said the nightingale. What I sing of, he suffers. What is joy to me, to him is pain. Truly love is a wondrous thing. It is more precious than emeralds and dearer than fine opals. Pearls and pomegranates cannot buy it, nor is it set forth in the marketplace. It may not be purchased of the merchants, nor can it be weighed out in the balance for gold. For what the student is suffering, that I sing of, and what I sing of, that he suffers. This is also some kind of conventional symbolism because the nightingale exists as a bird in real life, also known as a bird that can sing. So for the third one is the bird is personification. In this, there's a lot, but I only pick one, which the roses, which are the yellow, black, and the red roses, and also other plants. Why? Because the rose are given human actions or human qualities, which means the different rose trees can speak, which explains their limitations, and even give instructions on how to create a red rose. They express their sadness or inability. The textual evidence are, give me a red rose, cried the nightingale, and I will sing you my sweetest song. But the rose tree shook its head. The word shook here implies that it was given a human quality because the rose cannot shook its head. My roses are white, it answered. Go to my brother who grows round the old sundial, said the rose tree. If you want a red rose, said the tree, you must build it up of music by moonlight and stain it with your own heart's blood.